And captions. Huh. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'll get it right yet. Welcome all. Not sure why it's not showing the transcripts here. Anyway.
Yeah, it says participant has enabled closed captioning, so it's there, I guess.
Yeah, it should be here somewhere. Anyway, thank you all for being here. It's good to see you. It's been a couple of weeks since we last gathered. I think, as you all heard me say earlier, I am still in Oregon. We'll be here until tomorrow, be heading back to Tucson tomorrow evening. Been a great time, except that it's been very cold. So anyway, that's enough of my story for today. As always, I like to start our meetings thanking our sponsors, Care First Health Plan. I don't believe Mauricio's on the line today. Valley of the Sun United Way, Satellite Broadcasting Communications Association, Khajiit Triad Wireless, and Karen Ziegler Consulting Services. So actually, let me see who's here online. Henry, Mark, Susan. Well, I think we have a couple of new people who are online with us today. And if you've been here before, I have a good memory. It's just a little short. But I don't believe, let's see who we got here this morning. Maria, I think you're fairly new to us, are you not? Maria Garcia?
Hi, sorry.
No
I'm with
problem.
Northern Arizona Council of Governments, Community Services Department. I work primarily out of Flagstaff, Arizona, and then we have satellite offices in Apache, Navajo, and Yavapai counties.
Okay. So we'll want to hear more about what you guys are doing and what, if any, interests what you're working on in regard to broadband at a future time. Susan Morris.
Yes, hi, everybody. I'm Susan Morris. I'm with Advanced Business Learning ABL Cyber Academy. I'm kind of taking over the role. Craig Cocciola has been part of this group a while back, and he's been 100% devoted to launching our new cyber training platform. So I'm going to try and join this meeting on his behalf as often as possible. So it's great to see everybody again. It's ABL Cyber Academy, job skills, job role skills training. Sorry about that, for cybersecurity.
Great. Well, glad you're joining us and getting involved with us. Cybersecurity is certainly an issue that we all need to deal with. So let's go ahead and move on. Excuse me, get rid of this here. So again, just a reminder, if you haven't, please fill out our form so that we can capture your information, who you're with, and so forth. Although most of this time, we can capture it from the registration list. But anyway, just wanted to touch base with you about that. So next thing, yes.
It's Maria. How do I get that form?
Okay, you can actually, if you should have gotten my email, but also if you're seeing this screen, if you're seeing this page, It is at the top here. It says, want to connect with task force colleagues. You can find the list of participants, and then there's the Google form.
Okay,
Okay,
great. Thank you.
you bet. Moving on. So I just wanted to do a follow-up. Most of you, those of you who attended our last meeting may remember that we had a good discussion with Marcus Johnson, who's a state health policy director with Vitalist Health Foundation, Lyle Ishida with the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division with the FCC. And the upshot of that meeting, which we're going to do some more follow-up on, is that excuse me, is that those who have been on access generally have been required to re-enroll or update their information on an annual basis. And if I understood correctly, that because of the pandemic, they did not have to do that for the last 2 years. And now they're going to have to do that again if they want to keep their health coverage. And so Medicaid, the Arizona Access Program is going to be launching a campaign to get people signed up. And a lot of the same information that they need to get people signed up for Medicaid is the same information we need for ACP sign up. So we're trying to figure out how we can collaborate with Access and their plans for outreach and getting people re-enrolled to also get them signed up for ACP. So we'll be coordinating more with them. I haven't had a chance to follow up. I know Mala has already had some conversations with Marcus, and Mala, I don't know if you want to say anything. I don't know if you've done any more since before the last meeting, but Mauricio and Mala are going to kind of take a lead on coordinating our efforts with Marcus, Lyle, and others on this initiative. Mala, do you have anything you want to add at this point?
Actually, Erin Lorandos from our office will be taking the lead,
Okay.
but she's out now at the NDA conference, Net Inclusion. And so I'll update her when she gets back, and she'll take the lead on this.
Okay, sounds like a good plan.
Lyle wanted us to do a whole month, not just a day, because we discussed about doing a day, and we talked about it not being feasible for libraries because some libraries are not open all 5 days or 6 days in a week, and you may choose a day when they're closed, and it's impossible to get them to, do a program on that day. So we discussed it and decided that it be the whole month of either April or May. We have to still decide which month it's going to be. But he would do several train the trainer sessions and would send out the material as well. And we'll take it from there. We haven't done any planning yet.
Okay, thank you. Well, I know you jumped on it quite quickly after our first conversation about this, that I know you connected right away with Marcus, and really appreciate that. This is really a great opportunity to get people signed up for ACP, but it also presents the same challenges we've discussed before of being able to have navigators that can help people through the process. So we'll be working on trying to figure out how to make that happen. So related to that, not next week, but the week after, April Jones, who's the DES Community Engagement Liaison for Central Region and Projects Manager with the Office of the Director, is going to provide us. They're working on a new ACP initiative, and she's going to give us an update. That plan isn't public yet, but she's going to give us an update on what that plan is, and again, for us to be able to explore how we collaborate with them. And Andy, do you have anything that you want to talk about? We certainly need to bring you into that process also. You've been a regular participant, but we really haven't had you provide an update on the work that you do.
Well, basically, I just share information from AZBSN and other organizations make sure that our network of community action agencies are aware of what's going on with broadband.
So obviously, Andy, we need to connect with you in April on this ACP initiative. So I need to bring you into make sure you're in the fold also.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions about that before we move on? Okay, so while we're talking with Andy, Andy, do you want to give us a quick recap of your Economic Development Advisory Consortium meeting? That was a great meeting. It was very informative for me and I think for others. You want to just do a quick recap of that meeting?
Okay, thank you. Every quarter, I pull together what's called CEDAC, the Community Economic Development Advisory Consortium. We have community action agencies that work with people throughout the state to help eliminate poverty. These agencies may assist with rental assistance, with electric, gas, utilities in general. But we have in some areas of the state populations of up to about 35% where they're in the poverty level. And it's a matter of how to get rid of that. So what I did was to bring together organizations not necessarily related to poverty reduction, such as academia, economic development. I've brought in hospital organizations to talk about how can we eliminate poverty or at least reduce poverty. And at this meeting, we addressed the idea of apprenticeships and about 2 other topics. So again, we try to look at it from a non-traditional perspective of reducing poverty. So don't be surprised if I call on some of you one day, which I've done before, to address that. So thank you, Steve.
You bet, Andy. So one thing that was really interesting for me and kind of touched off some conversations we've had in the past is about funding. And Andy's been doing a great job of sharing some of the different funding sources that are available. And then we also heard at that meeting from the Arizona Economic Recovery Center grants resources. And if you recall that we have been in touch with them in the past, and that resource center, actually, let me check this out here, enables more Arizona cities and towns, counties, and nonprofits to win competitive grants. An initiative of Local First Arizona, the center provides pro bono, and that's important for you to know, free pro bono resources to qualifying entities that can increase community capacity, improve collaboration, and assist with managing grant-related projects. And so particularly for a lot of the smaller organizations, many of whom are involved with this task force, that being able to go after different funding, we know that that particularly infrastructure development is an expensive proposition and is really dependent upon grant funding, on government funding, but there is still a lot of other funding that's available from foundations and corporate and so forth. And so the Economic Recovery Center can help with that. And I'm going to bring them back into the process. One of the things that I have said in a couple of different places is that as we move ahead with planning for digital equity and digital inclusion, is that local organizations need to start doing their planning. They need to talk about what they want to do, what's it going to cost, how much staff do they need, and so forth, so that that can feed into the state digital equity planning process. And so the Economic Recovery Center can be a great resource to help organizations to do that kind of planning. So I'm going to be in touch with them and follow up again with them to look at how we can better collaborate with them and helping local organizations to do some of their planning. Was there somebody, Mark, or somebody started to say something? I guess not. So those are just a couple of quick updates. I have a few other things to report, but I wanted to jump back to the beginning, and I don't see Sandeep online, but I did see Nicole. And so Nicole, can you please give us kind of an update on the latest and what's happening, please?
Sure, good afternoon. I don't know that I have any breaking updates. I know we're all eagerly waiting on the broadband office in conjunction with other people in their review committee to finalize the contractors that will be used to fulfill the activities for BEAD, for the Digital Equity Act planning grant, as well as for the Middle Mile project. So I know that those review committees have all met and they've shortlisted some candidates. Thought they were going to have a decision last week. It looks like that is going to happen sometime this week.
Okay, anything else, Nicole?
I can say, well, NTIA does have a number of different broadband and digital equity programs in addition to BEAD and DE. We've just announced, let me get my notes up here, 175 million for the Connecting Minority Communities pilot project. So there are 3 awardees in Arizona already, but a kind of fuller slate of awardees has been announced. So I'll go ahead and put that link in the chat.
Okay. Who can you tell me offhand, Nicole, who those 3 are that receive grants?
Yep. So it's, oh, sorry, I hear some. Was there another question or no?
No, go ahead,
Okay.
please.
It's Dene College, the Tano Atom Community College in Sells, and the University of Arizona.
Okay, cool. Okay, so anything else, Nicole?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you. So since you mentioned the University of Arizona, and I don't know if this is the same grant that you're referring to, but the U of A did receive a $3 million grant. Is that the same grant, Nicole?
Yep, that's from NTIA. That's the Connecting
Okay, yeah.
Minority Communities grant.
Okay, so I have been in touch with the project lead, Brian Carter, and he was unfortunately not available today, but we're tentatively scheduled him next week to provide an overview of that project. It's very much in line with all of the things that we've been interested in particularly regarding digital inclusion, but also connectivity. And so we expect to hear from Brian next week with an overview of that project. So while we're talking about overview of projects, Paul, you want to give us a quick update that you also have received a grant? I forgot to put the amount in here, Boundless Broadband Transforming Minority Communities Project. And so, Paul, you want to give us a quickie overview of that project, please?
Just briefly, I'm actually part of that announcement that we were just referencing right then. So if you go to that link that Nicole just put in the chat, there is a brief description there of the Phoenix College project. And so you can see that right there. There's multiple components that are part of that project. And so more information to come. So I'll leave it at that for now, but excited to see the announcement made today. So very excited for that.
So there's two really exciting, well, three projects that are pretty exciting that are happening here in Arizona. And so we'll get an update. I'll make Paul give us a more detailed overview. Maybe Paul next week in conjunction with the U of A overview, if you're willing to do that. How's that for putting you on the spot?
We'll have to wait for timing because everything has to go through a process. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I will definitely provide an update down the track with for the team. Definitely.
That sounds great. So that's a pretty exciting that we've got some stuff happening here in Arizona. So let's see. So I want to remind people that I've included, and Andy had shared, as I mentioned earlier, a number of different funding opportunities many of whom he found through the Economic Recovery Center. And so I have shared those in the email that I sent out, but just a reminder, there's this, somebody's needs,
Don't talk to me.
Tracy, is that you? That
Hmm.
needs to, thank you. The Sparklight Charitable Giving Funds, Desert Diamond Casinos and Entertainment, US Bank Foundation, AARP. And so those are just some of the many kinds of funding opportunities, many of whom have deadlines coming up. So you need to check those out and go after that funding. Again, particularly for a lot of our small nonprofit organizations, that many of those grants are much more viable for you than government grants. So please check them out and go after funding. If you need some help, either let me know or contact the Economic Recovery Center, and they can help you write those grants and help to manage them and so forth. Any questions about that?
Steve, make a comment about some of the grants.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Andy.
AARP's Community Challenge Grant is one of the easiest grants you can apply for. It helps out all sorts of organizations, and it doesn't have to be elderly people. It's community oriented. It could go towards broadband training, marketing. It could go towards beautifying a community, go towards a park improvement. It's a wide open grant. And that's the advantage of some of these private grants. They are very wide open compared to a very specific government grant.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Any other questions or comments regarding those grants? If any of you know of other funding sources that we should share, please let me know. Now is a good time to start doing that planning and going after grants. So anyway, that's that. Okay, just a couple of events that I'm aware of that are coming up. On February 28th, the Arizona Technology Council, I didn't see Carla, are you online yet? I don't think she was here this morning. The Arizona Technology Council has a virtual tech speaker series on Arizona women in cybersecurity, 3:30 to 5 o'clock. That is tomorrow. So if any of you are interested, it might be a good virtual event to attend. And then on the 9th, March 9th, there's an annual Tribal Hub Virtual Tribal Cybersecurity Summit. It's a free event to attend. Again, it'll be online. Again, you'll find the information and how to register in my email. So check it out, and many of you may want to attend that event. And then the last thing that I have, and maybe others have some announcements that they want to make, is that the National Skills Coalition has created the Closing the Digital Skill Divide report. And on the 22nd, they hosted a webinar, Closing the Digital Skill Divide, the Payoff for Workers, Business, and the Economy. That webinar is now available online. Again, you will find the link to that event in the excuse me, in my email. So again, I just want to remind you, I know you don't all read all my emails to you, but I do have a lot of information about resources, about events, upcoming events, and so forth. And so I really encourage you to not be like me and try to at least skim through and find what might be useful for you. So any other questions or comments? I don't know if I see Jenny has joined us. I don't think Sandeep has made it today. Okay, well, let's move on. Mala, do you have anything more that you want to share regarding the library?
Sure, I will. Give me 1 second. Get it up. Okay. More from what's happening at the national scene. There's talk about the House Republicans planning a on having an oversight committee for BEAD and FCC funding oversight even before the funding has been distributed or likely to be distributed. The ACP and ECF extension discussions are also on in the Congress because both of them run out next year. Let's see if it is going to get continued or not. I think
Mala,
there is
Mala, can you say a little bit more about that? Because the ACA has the planning funds.
no, not the ACA, ACP,
ACP.
ACP,
Gotcha.
and ECF. Both of them depends on, ECF is, I think it will be extended for spending at least what has already been committed because of some of the equipment not being available. But they're not going to commit any fresh money unless the discussions in Congress work well and they find the money to continue it. The same thing with ACP, because as we get more and more people enrolled into ACP, the money is going to run out quicker. But also, hopefully, this is, as we always have been saying, this is just a Band-Aid. It's likely that the people who are on ACP will find other ways to pay for their internet once they've got hooked onto it. And also, there is a chance, of course, that these people will become ineligible if their incomes go beyond the eligible income level. So both ways, they could lose being an ACP customer. The other discussion that is happening is about the rip and replace funding for the WOWI products and services. That was declared more than a year ago when Congress wanted those who are receiving Huawei products or products other made in China products and services to be ripped and replaced, and there was funding put in place for that. But that funding is now tied to the appropriation. Those appropriations are tied to the debt ceiling. So unless we know what's going to happen with the debt ceiling, this is linked to that. And if there is no funding, no further funding for it, then there is no question of ripping and replacing the Huawei products. So that is something we need to keep a lookout for. Then, as far as mapping is concerned, the Shelby is going to file something to FCC to talk about amending the Data Act, which the Data Act actually says that the fabric of the map should include all institutions, not just, some, especially anchor institutions are not being put on the map. Also, not that FCC themselves have realized that they shouldn't take at face value what the ISPs submit, because Jefferson Cable Company actually sent out an email to a wrong person saying that they deliberately reported that a particular area had gig speeds when it did not, because they did not want the competitors to win the contract in that area. And this email ended up with FCC. So the chairwoman has taken that very seriously, and FCC is investigating all of those ISPs who have reported speeds that are not the actual speeds that are being received, and also investigating areas where the fiber they say is available is really not available. So she's really taken that very seriously, and I have no idea how they're going to check it out, because there doesn't seem to be a clear methodology on how they can go about finding out that information. So let's wait and see what's happening. At least there is something stirring in that pot. Also, Shelby had one of its members, Colin Rhinestone, do an analysis on on the map. And one of the things that he discovered was that many of the places where these anchor institutions were listed as non-serviceable areas. They do have service currently, and there are schools and libraries in those areas all receiving internet access, but still they are listed as non-serviceable areas. So that's again another anomaly that needs to be checked out. So as far as that meeting went, FCC did say that they're going to bring out a map in the summer, another one in the fall, and a fourth one in spring of next year. And in all likelihood, that last one is the one that will be used to allocate the BEAD funding. Nothing in writing yet. So all we can say is this is what they mentioned at the meeting. So we'll wait and see what happens. Also, there was discussion during the Shelby meeting about broadband labels. Those getting the mass market services should be able to identify what they're getting. It's just like a nutrition label on a food container. They should know what service they're getting, what is included in that bundle service and in the mass market services. So we'll again wait and see what's going to happen with that. FFL, that is the Funds for Learning, has, as you know, is pushing on cybersecurity, on firewalls being eligible as Category 2, because Category 2 funds in E-rate are underutilized right now, and there wouldn't be a need for new funding in order to have these become eligible as Category 2. Again, that's something we've got to wait and see. So any questions?
Questions
to
for
you.
Mala? Okay, Mala, I don't know if you have any updates. Janet's not here today, whether you have any additional updates on the telehealth and libraries project.
Real quick, Mala. So I was on a call on Thursday with, I think it was NTIA, and there was one of their presenters who was talking about the maps from the Southern Texas region where they are reporting they're 100% covered. But so she was showing photos and stuff of rail, or it's like, because they're like trailer parks and, different type of dwellings that they're not covered, but they are reporting it. And so they're fighting the mapping as well in the Southern Texans region.
Right. We sent up, at least Arizona sent up through ACA a challenge, again, for more than 170,000 households that are not included in Arizona, residences whose addresses were not included on the map at all. So there are so many discrepancies. So I'm sure this version of the map cannot be used for the BEAD allocation because there were so many challenges.
Yeah, it was interesting on how bad theirs was. It was crazy. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Nicole, do you want to say anything more about the mapping at this point, or we pretty much covered it?
Yeah, it gets pretty fun, but there's 3 different versions of the FCC map, or of what they call the fabric. So there's until March 15th for additional challenges to version 2 of the FCC fabric. And that's what will be incorporated into the June 30th date for the BEAD allocations.
Nicole,
Okay.
this is Joy Whiting. I have kind of a follow-up question on that.
Mhm.
Is there going to be any discussion with NTIA or the state of Arizona about the RDOF awardees versus what's going to be coming with BEAD, and if that is going to affect the ability for some of these unserved areas who are supposedly being covered by RDOF, but there's no movement or no carrier that's even been in the area?
right? And that's a big concern for a lot of states. And it is Arizona's obligation not to duplicate the use of federal funds in any one area. So I know that Sandeep's going to try to be collecting information on all of those builds. There's also different build out requirements for RDOF versus BEAD, which, you know, for residential is requiring speeds at a minimum of 100. So there's a lot of coordination that still needs to go on there. But I can, Joy, I can try to dig up some more information, and I know that that's on a lot of people's mind right now.
I guess I'm just wondering if there's anything that can be done at the state level or even at the county level about whether or not we have to, if RDOF awardees have to prove anything, because the BEAD money is coming and we don't want to lose it. So I don't know if there's a timing issue or something we can do. If so, let us know.
Yep. Yeah, let's see if we can arrange arrange a call with Sandeep and
Okay.
Different counties that are
I
concerned.
might be able
Thank
to,
you.
I might be able to shed some light on the RDOF issue since we were involved with it. A lot of companies bid equipment that wouldn't work, and then they, after they were awarded the 1 gigabit per second category, because every single household in Arizona was listed at 1 gigabit per second for RDOF. And then they bid equipment they knew wasn't going to work. RDOF let them wait until the equipment finally came to market, which is now. And they've all appealed back to RDOF, to the FCC, to use new equipment. So, you know, that's kind of what's happening. So the new equipment is coming out, but in those 3 years, many of those same areas are now already built out with those same level of services. And they're not going to audit it and make it better. They're just going to dole the money out as per the original contract, or the original bid.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're overbuilding areas we're already in because of what happened. So longer discussion, but basically that's what's happening. And so they're trying to get their hands on the newer equipment. They're still probably 6 to 12 months out before that happens.
Okay, anything else on that topic before we move on?
Steve, I just wanted to report back on ACP because Erin is not here.
Right.
ACP, we have currently 366,000 households that have signed up as of the middle of February. We also sent out a letter to the public library directors. The state library did send out a letter to the public library directors asking them what languages they would need the flyers in and how many flyers they would need, because Lyle said that he had outreach material in 17 different languages, and he was willing to give the libraries as many as they wanted, so to promote, to do the outreach. So we are collecting that data, and we have the list of libraries that he can directly send it to, which is what they said they would do. So that's the report on ACP.
Okay. So moving on. Yeah, so Aaron's not here today.
Steve?
Yeah, Mark.
To your telehealth update question, I did post in the chat, a group called the Reason Foundation put out a very nice report about telehealth policy in every state. And what's notable that only Arizona and Delaware were green lighted for the 4 different ways that they talk about telehealth policy. And that's really, you know, credit is due to Mike Keeling and Janet and Dr. Weinstein and myself and others for, you know, dragging the policy, beating that policy horse along all these years. But there is a nice little telehealth report where we shine.
Cool. Yeah, I'll share that, Mark, my next email. By the way, just a reminder, if you have things that you want to be shared, be sure and put them in the chat or send it to me so that I can include it when I do my my meeting summary. So Before I move on, Jeremy, I see that are you still online, you and Kelly Green? If you're online in a few minutes, I'd like to have you guys talk a little bit and for us to chat a little bit about how we can best collaborate with you guys. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Kelly's probably here as well.
She was.
There she's
So let me finish with a couple of other things and hopefully you can stay online and then we can have, I know we've had some conversation with Kelly in the past, but now with ACP and everything that we should, I'm interested. I think this is the first time you've joined us. I know Kelly's been there before. So interested in knowing how we can, what your interest is. So anyway, let's move on quickly. Janet's not here. Philip, you want to give us an update on what's happening with the Department of Ed?
Yep. So Department of Ed, Office of Digital Teaching and Learning, we're still plugging away with the same topics from last year. We did make some headway with the cybersecurity survey that Karina has been diligently working on. So we're just looking for some more opinions before we send that in April. We're doing our best to help the Department of Homeland Security send a message to the governor's office in the rebranding effort of the cybersecurity program. And a couple of things that have gone over the past week or so. Karina's worked pretty hard on getting us a membership, or all LEAs a membership with COSIN, which is the Consortium School Network, and then also the statewide MOU for LEAs to use DEMA for vulnerability scanning. So those are some updates from us.
So have you heard anything more? It sounds like you've contacted the governor's office about continuing funding for cybersecurity. What's the status with that? Is there anything we need to do or can do or should do?
So in working with the Department of Homeland, they're still developing the strategy they want to follow.
Okay.
So nothing as of yet. So we should hear something in the next coming weeks.
Okay.
So, but really appreciate the support. Thank you.
Yeah. Karina, well, since you're online, do you want to share anything more? Karina, are you still there?
I'm on that. I am here, but Philip covered everything really well. So thank you so much for asking.
Okay, no problem. And I don't believe Mylan's here today. I know Cindy's on the way to the national conference, so she's not here. Derek couldn't make it today. And Rory, you're online. Do you want to say anything about with Triad Wireless? Do you want to say anything, any more updates about the Final Mile project?
No, there's four new Final Mile bids that are out. We're working on them. I think they're due on the 10th. So they'll all get submitted and we'll go from there.
Okay, any questions for Rory? Okay, well, if not, I'd like to circle back to what I was talking about just a few minutes ago with Jeremy. Jeremy, your title is, are you president of the SciTech or executive director? I'm not sure exactly what your title is these days. And Kelly Green, I think you're the COO for that organization. You guys want to talk a little bit about what you guys are doing and maybe how we can collaborate with you, particularly with ACP. So Jeremy, you're on.
All right. And Kelly, are you still here? I don't know if she's on or not.
I'll look.
No, she's there. So
okay,
either of us can cover it. So I think I'm trying to think like specifically to go into it, but we've been working a lot into building out STEM ecosystem throughout the state of Arizona. And this has been something that we've been working on for almost a decade now, which is this idea of how do we work collaboratively to connect the dots around education, community, business, government. And a lot of you probably are familiar with the work with the festival. And really, it was has been a great way to bring people together with events and opportunities to just align what happens. And I imagine here, a lot of this work aligns opportunities as well. What the possible connection point is, we've been having some additional momentum in terms of building out regional hubs across the state. And so part of that work is going to be really figuring out what type of conversations might really help connect the dots in a local community. So for example, we have a coordinator now in Pima County, and we have a coordinator in Coconino, and recently brought somebody on in Yavapai. If there's anybody that knows anybody in Cochise County that would be of interest, we have a position open, as well as one in Yuma. But the idea could really be, as a component of these hubs, really ensuring that digital equity conversations and those partners are connected with those local hubs. But also there can be opportunities in terms of how to connect these dots across the state with what you're doing, but also adding in connections with opportunities like we have the SciTech STEM Summit that we do. That could be another way to connect. But those are just some initial ideas to throw out.
So Jeremy, obviously, since you have a really extensive network around the state, if nothing else, two things. One is to help us get the word out about this group and about the task force. And secondly, about ACP and resources and what's happening with broadband in the state and what the needs still are and all that kind of stuff. Because obviously you have a lot of people who are directly impacted by all that.
I mean, obviously, making sure that you have as many voices in terms of where the broadband build out is important. I imagine this is the group that's already been talking about it for quite some time. We actually have been talking with a group called the Digital Equity Institute. I don't know if anybody's heard of them.
Sure.
But at one point they were really excited. The person who heads it actually used to work at the White House under Megan Smith. And he was familiar at that point when we were working with the White House on the chief science officers, and he really liked the idea of having a youth voice around digital equity. And so there could be some ways to build visibility, like if, let's say, we had an Arizona Digital Equity Summit, and we have a lot of chief science officers, but it doesn't have to just be that. It could be youth across the state to really be part of those discussions into places that are really going to be important to get that opinion on. And that was something that I know that there was extreme interest from the Digital Equity Institute. And I know that, we had there might be interest also from like the ACA lens too. That might be something to talk to Sandeep about and see kind of where they're at one point, but we did mention that to him as well.
Well, that certainly would feed into the state digital equity planning,
Right.
Digital inclusion planning, once everybody's on board and they get rolling along with that planning process. But the other thing, Jeremy, that where we might intersect with you is that one of the discussions we continuously have is the issue of how do we help people who have never been connected, who are getting internet, who are getting devices, but don't really know how to use it. And
Yeah.
so we really have been talking a lot about that whole issue, and many times it's come up about how can we engage young people in training them to be able to help people to get signed up to use technology and so forth.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that would be a great intersection place.
Yeah, I think that could really make a lot of sense.
So the new wording for that is digital literacy and standing up training and programs for that. So that's something I am having conversations on my side of the house. Because as some of you know, I gave out 70 devices a couple of weeks ago, and a ton of, I've gotten so many emails since, like, it's telling me I need a key. It's telling me this. And it's like, no, you don't really need a key. So going back and how do I not just give them out, but how to then have a workshop behind them getting them and how to use them.
So Kelly, do you want to add anything more, Kelly Green?
No, I'm okay. Thank you, though.
Okay.
One other thing that might tie in some way, I'm not 100% sure, but Kelly started a project to put up these little free STEM libraries. So really having the STEM theme with the free libraries, and she's been driving in a lot of putting them out in places where there isn't access to as much infrastructure, and I'm assuming in some of these places there isn't internet access. And so I do also wonder, is there potential to leverage these little free libraries for connecting with people that might not have those opportunities. At one point, I think she even wanted to figure out how to put internet access on those little free libraries so people could come and really utilize them as a convening point.
Mala, do you want to comment on that at all?
Not really. Yeah, I think he said it very well. I don't have any other comments on that.
Okay. All righty.
Yeah, the
Anything
free
else?
my only
Go ahead,
comment,
Teresa.
of course, if you stand up a free library, it's no longer going to be wood. It would have to be metal because of all the infrastructure that would have to go in it. So your cost to build is going to be more. It's not impossible to do, but if you want something that's not going to be knocked over, because how many of these free libraries are on the side within weeks in certain communities, unfortunately.
That's true. That's true.
So
And
Jeremy,
then-
are those free libraries going to be standalone, or are they being incorporated into other organizations and resources and communities? How is that happening?
So currently
yeah.
they are, it depends. It's a variety. So some are within the gated community of a school. Some are at libraries. We have one in the Sholo Airport. We have them all over. So it really just depends, but the possibilities are growing to have sustainable opportunities for access points. But I don't think it necessarily would be something to base this large rollout. It's just now that we're getting connected to communities like the Navajo Nation that are putting up these locations, access points, it's a possible location to add Wi-Fi access.
Having a kiosk, where they can access the information is one thing, but knowing how to access and what you're accessing is a completely different thing altogether, So again, it goes back to the digital literacy and how do you make people understand how to get to the information, even though you have equipment available. So that's the question.
So Jeremy, again, we have a lot of different organizations who are participating in this group, many of whom are dealing with some of the same issues that you're talking about here. So, again, that's been part of our effort, is to try and connect folks who are trying to do things together. So, for example, what you heard about what the U of A is going to be doing, or what Paul's going to be doing here in the Phoenix area, for example, and there's lots of those kinds of examples, things that Sharika's doing in the state library, and lots of other folks. And so I think there's some real synergy to tie in with what you're doing. And so we need to kind of talk about how do we best how you can best talk to us about what your needs are and how we can help, hopefully, support those efforts. Okay. Anything
So
else?
Steve,
Yeah, Mama.
with the $3 million that U of A received, one of the things that they are planning to do is to create equipment bundles that can be checked out by students. Yeah, so that they get the hotspot and the laptop, but they also get headphones and webcams and things like that. And most importantly, they provide supporting personnel at education sites in rural Arizona. So I don't know what exactly they would mean by education sites. They could have them at libraries, they could have them at schools, they could have them elsewhere, but they are providing support. They will pay for personnel to help these people who get the devices at educational sites in Arizona.
So as I mentioned earlier, Mala, Brian Carter, who is leading that, is one of the key leaders in that effort with the U of A, is going to be presenting next week. And so he wasn't aware of the task force. He was very excited. Unfortunately, he is in Washington today and couldn't be with us, but he is definitely interested in participating with us and looking at opportunities to collaborate. So again, we'll be hearing from him next week.
Good to hear.
Okay, and Carla, you have a couple of things happening, and I wanted to mention to you, I hadn't sent this off to you yet, but in regard to the event that you've talked to me and Michelle about, is Brian might be a good person, because that project is really focused on Southern Arizona. So anyway, Carla, you want to kind of talk about a couple of things you got going on? Are you there, Carla? Okay, so anybody else have any other announcements or things that they want to share today? Don't hear it. So, oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Drew, we have a presentation from you today. I really apologize. I almost forgot. So do you want to kind of do a quick share about who you are and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, Steve. So it's nice to see all you guys. My name is Drew Pappas. I work for a company called Bonfire Infrastructure Group.
Bye.
We're based out of Denver, Colorado, and we started in 2000. I've worked with Bonfire since 2016 when we first started. We've kind of started initially more on the kind of turnkey engineering and construction side, so offering services to different kind of tier one and all those different kind of customers. And over the years, we've really transitioned more into working with what I like to call alternative providers. So more of kind of our tribal partners and our municipal partners and any of the kind of tier 2 and tier 3 ISPs. And so we actually just this past year with our 4 different tribal partners and some of the smaller ISPs at the state and federal level, helped them win about $115 million in grant funding. And so one of our tribal partners in Southwest Colorado got awarded the second largest NTIA tribal grant. And so we're really excited about that. And so on top of that, we've kind of also spun off and created another arm that's called Bonfire Fiber, and that's where we're operating open access networks. So we're doing that with a combination of private capital that we're looking to deploy in markets, kind of all over the country, a lot focused in kind of Rocky Mountain regions, but also then having to kind of like what we're doing with some of our tribal partners, partner with them where they own the infrastructure, and then we just operate that
A lot of background noise
on top of them. Oh, sorry, you guys having a tough time hearing me?
Sounds like it's
sorry, yeah, Drew. We got some background noise from somebody.
No problem.
If you can mute Sharika, I think it'll be fine. That's the one that's popping up.
I got it. Sorry, guys. I switched phones.
Yeah,
okay. Thanks, Sharika. Okay.
Yeah, so kind of really offering the, through the whole broadband journey, anything on the front side from broadband planning and, any kind of feasibility and gap analysis and, market kind of assessment and, what are the speeds and everything going on in your community. And then what kind of business models make sense is, is it a muni type of network? Is it something where you're, some sort of private public partnership? And then, all the different financial models that go with that. And then as well into the engineering and construction, and then being able to operate those networks on top of that. So very excited about the Arizona markets, New Mexico, Colorado. And so really appreciate you guys having me join.
Okay. Any questions for Drew? Drew, you didn't have a presentation you wanted to share, did you?
No, I just wanted to chat with you guys and just introduce myself. So
okay.
I'll be joining these weekly.
Sounds great. Thanks, Drew. Welcome. Any questions for Drew? Any other announcements? Carla, are you available now? You had a couple of things happening. Carla, are you there? Okay. Well, I think we are done for today. Well, again, look for my email. You'll get an update. Might be a little slow since I won't be back until tomorrow evening, but I will try and get out the summary of the meeting. And Mark, did you have you put a number of things in the chat? Do you want to share any of those real quickly?
I think I talked about 2 of them. One of them is a pretty cool cybersecurity guide for small businesses. We look at both ones for personal, and there's been that loaves and fishes one for kind of seniors or individuals. And maybe we should simply, have a kind of cybersecurity resource page that points to some of these existing ones. This is one I would suggest would fall in that category.
Okay. Anything else? So
I-
Carla, I see you're back.
I'm sorry. For the one moment I stepped away, you called on me. I'm so sorry. I actually just added the digital flyer to the chat for
Okay.
the upcoming Workforce Development Summit that will be happening on March 16th at the UA Tech Parks. It is a collaborative effort of over, I'd say about 30 community organizations. But to the interest of the group, Michelle Simon will be presenting and addressing the issue and the conversation about digital divide. She's got a phenomenal presentation and so much research and so much information that she's going to share with everybody. Traditionally, that is supposed to be a panel. So if any of you are interested in joining her for that, please let me know as soon as possible so we can finalize the marketing material and the programs. But it is a 45-minute presentation. So if you want to share that space and talk about the digital divide and the work that we're doing across the state, I'd be happy to have a conversation with you all. But the digital flyer is on there, and I'll put my contact information as well if you guys have any questions or want to be involved.
Carla, is that going to be focused primarily on Southern Arizona, or is it going to be statewide?
It is 100% focused on Pima County. This is part of the Pima County Workforce Investment Board, and it's an event that we're putting together to specifically focus on workforce development efforts in Southern Arizona.
That's what I thought. So one of the people, I'm gonna send you the information, Carla. I don't know if you were on earlier when I was talking about the U of A grant that they just got, the $3 million grant. And I think that Brian, who hopefully will be presenting next week, might really be ideal. Just
so,
FYI, I met him probably 15 years ago, and he was one of the most innovative people in looking at use of technology in teaching. And that was 15 years ago, and he's just continued that. And so he might be a really good person
yeah, if you could
to be a
connect
part
us,
of that
I would
panel.
appreciate that for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And anybody else, please, if you're interested in attending or participating, please let me know within the next 3 to 4 days.
Okay. And then you also have a Tech Council event tomorrow.
Yes, that is, I heard you mention it during the beginning portion of the meeting with our Tech Talk series. That information, I'll put that in the chat as well. And I'm glad you mentioned the Tech Council event, because the March 16th event will also have a culmination event with the Tech Council, which is a presentation with Darling Geomatics, starting at 5 o'clock, and they'll be doing drone presentations, and we'll be right outside in the plaza at the Tech Park. So don't miss out. It's going to be a great event. Lots of stuff going on, but I'll put all that information in the chat as well.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else people want to share before we're done for today? Okay, I guess we're done. So thank you all for participating, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.